courtroom packed with judges, prosecutors, lawyers, journalists, neo-Nazis, and police, that she'd taken great care to save lives the day she set the fire. The lives of other white Germans and her two precious cats. She wouldn't have needed to set the fire if only the 15th bank robbery had gone as well as the 14 before it. For over a decade, her two best friends, and sometimes lovers, had been robbing banks at gunpoint in towns across Germany. On their previous heist, the two men, who shared the same first name, had walked in carrying 2 pistols, a revolver, and a hand grenade, one wearing a vampire mask and the other a ski mask. They walked out with 15,000 euros in cash, making their getaway as they always did, on bicycles. Over the years, they'd stolen hundreds of thousands of Deutschmarks and euros, worth nearly $1 million today. For their 15th heist, they drove 2 hours from Zwickau to Eisenach, the birthplace of composer Johann Sebastian Bach, and where Martin Luther translated the New Testament from Latin and Greek into German. On November 4th, 2011, at 9:15 a.m., they walked in wearing sweatpants and sneakers, one in a gorilla mask, the other in a mask from the movie Scream. They pistol-whipped the bank manager, leaving a wound on his head. They pedaled away with 72,000 euros in a bag. At 9:30 a.m., police issued an alert for officers to be on the lookout for 2 men on bicycles. 20 minutes later, a witness told officers he'd seen 2 men ride bikes into a hardware store parking lot a half-mile from the bank. They were in a hurry. They loaded their bikes into a white camper van and drove off. Hours passed without any sign of the culprits, and police theorized they might attempt to drive deeper into Saxony, the eastern German state where other recent bank robberies had taken place. Officers fanned out to patrol the roads leading west toward the city of Chemnitz. But at 4 minutes past noon, police spotted a white camper van parked on the side of the road a few miles north of the bank. 2 officers got out of their vehicle and approached it. Just then, they heard a gunshot, then another. The officers took cover behind a nearby car and a dumpster. Another shot rang out. Then the van went up in flames. The cops radioed firefighters who rushed to the scene and quickly extinguished the blaze. Carefully, they opened the side door and looked in. Lying on the floor were the bodies of the 2 bank robbers, each with a bullet through the head. After setting the van on fire, one of them had shot the other, then turned the gun on himself. Searching through the carnage, a police officer inspected the guns. On the vehicle's right-hand seat was a Pletter 91 submachine gun and a Czech-made semi-automatic pistol. A black handgun was lying on a small end table between the 2 seats. But what caught the officer's eye were the 2 shiny brass-colored bullet cartridges. They looked just like the casings of his own government-issued bullets. Could the bank robbers be police? Investigators had learned little from the series of bank heists across eastern Germany in the preceding years. 2 months earlier, police in the town of Gotha described the suspects as both about 20 years old, slender figures, approximately 180 to 185 centimeters, masked, dark brown hair, darker skin tone, German language without an accent. That last phrase, German-speaking without an accent, seemed intended to distinguish the men from immigrants or foreigners. The robbers were German, or at least they sounded the part. But the second-to-last phrase, darker skin tone, seemed to differentiate them from the typical German, by implying they were not white. But the Gotha police got it wrong. That much was evident as officers looked inside the van at the bodies of 2 men, some of their white skin charred by the fire. When news reports began circulating that 2 bank robbers had killed themselves in a blaze of fire and gunshots, only one person in all of Germany knew who they were: the white woman with the long dark hair and 2 cats. Knew that they weren't just 2 money-driven men with a